Seams Between Us, a podcast pieced together from the scraps that made us.
We're your hosts, Dr. Stitcher.
And I'm the Sassy Stitcher. I'm the sass, and she's got the doctorate. And together, we're a little bit of fabric, a whole lot of feelings, and maybe a tangled bobbin or two.
And maybe a few piles, just a few piles.
I wasn't going to say it, but yes, her house is basically just piles.
No. Not piles. Projects, Sassy, projects.
Projects. I basically live like the Container Store exploded and left in a color-coded spreadsheet. So
you know what? I tried the Container Store. Do better with piles, finding my things. You got to have a little balance. You got to know your organization, and mine is project piles.
That's awesome. This podcast is all about what we piece together across generations, through grief, through memory, and through fabric. We're here for the stories, the stitching, and the stitches we don't always talk about, the stitches that leave scars.
We're both located in Texas. I'm up in the Panhandle.
And I'm the Wild Rebel in Austin.
The recent flooding in Central Texas was so devastating to so many families, and it really hit both of us pretty hard in the heart. We've been thinking about kids. We've both worked in the kid business. I've worked in education. You work as a therapist. And we spent a couple of days looking at that devastation and the way that flood just rose without any warning, so to speak, and how it rippled through the communities and has affected communities all over with those campers and with the campers from Camp Mystic and those campers that were just camping along the river and there for vacation for 4th of July. So many families have been displaced. Homes were lost. Businesses are probably lost. And there's so much grief that's been captured in that whole devastating event. Not to mention the first responders and the things they've seen.
Yeah. So in my day job, I'm a grief and trauma therapist, and I work with kiddos. So this is it's been a wild couple of weeks. This is basically my backyard. I think those first couple of days I spent majority of my time trying to contact all my current and former clients that I knew went to camp out in that area or went to Camp Mystic, and just like, hey, are you okay? Where are we at? And then there was the coaching people on how to talk to their kids about the flooding and what that looks like. And now I'm kind of in the phase of the kiddos who experienced it, whether they were at, I think the only 2 camps that really were in session down there, could be wrong, could be the only 2 I've heard of people from were Camp La Junta and Mystic had campers there. And so I'm starting to hear from families and campers who experienced this loss, or kiddos who lost their friends that were in Bubble and Twin Inn and, those cabins. And it's just been, I think, something that has constantly been on my mind and my heart. I think camp raised me in some ways. Camp makes so many people who they are. It was just such a big piece of growing up for me that I can't imagine the concept of this place being so ripped apart for so many people, even adults who went there as kids. This whole
I come from that angle too. Yes, I did go to camps, but I come from thinking about being a camp sponsor and chaperone, and how many things I went with you and your brother on and was responsible for kids, or even when I was a principal, going and being responsible for kids. And I can't even imagine how broken and traumatized those counselors are. Oh. Some of them are 18, 19, 20 years old. Some of them are older. My heart just breaks. And it broke that day when I noticed the news. And, we were in the kitchen getting ready to go somewhere for 4th of July. And I think I dropped my fork and went, oh my gosh. And you were like, what is it? And then I showed you the story, and we kind of talked about it from that point. Is there something we can do? And we kind of talked about it on your drive home.
I think we spent probably all of the 4th of July. We went to a couple. Side note, this is a mother-daughter situation. We'll get into that later. We felt this was more important. That'll be some humorous anecdotes later. Yeah. We spent most of the 4th of July bopping around from different gatherings that wanted us to come hang out, and both of us were just checking our phones, seeing what was happening and going on. The other thing that's been wild from this is realizing how small of a world we really live in. Like the connections.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon here. We are like 2 degrees away from, I think almost everyone in Texas is at least 2 degrees away from some real experience of this loss and what's going on down here.
And we haven't said, I have a nephew who is also your uncle that is down there as a first responder, a firefighter that is searching through that rubble.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I have a soft heart for first responders. That's what my brother does. That's what my nephew does. The world wouldn't be the same place it is without those people willing to risk their lives to save us. And we had some trauma at the beginning of the year, and that kind of comes into play too. Yeah. And I'm going to try not to cry, but we kept thinking, what can we do? Mm-hmm. What I can say is last year we had some pretty devastating wildfires up here, and we had them for the last couple of years. Lives have been lost, homes have been lost, livestock has been lost, and we were part of the Texas Shop Hop. And I put out there that we were collecting stuff for those fire victims, for those fire quilters, and those quilters stepped up. Mm-hmm. And I know you were going to kind of talk about what a quilt means to you. So talk a little bit about that.
So I think the idea here is we'll kind of go back into like our backstories episode 2. We're doing this a little backwards because why not? Somewhere along the first 48 hours of this tragedy occurring, we realized there was one thing we both were capable of doing. Is I knew I was kind of walking into doing the counseling piece. Part of how I cope with the grief and trauma I hear every day is that I can come home and do quilting that forces my brain to stop thinking about what I just heard all day or what I just
absolutely
took in. And so it's just like I have no other option to focus on not cutting my fingers with the rotary cutter, or like, did I put the bobbin in correctly, or how is this going to play out together? And so it forces a disconnect from that piece that has really like worked for me in the past couple of years. And so we realized, thinking about that and thinking about watching people when the Panhandle had those wildfires, the thing we could do that was really easy was just put out the call to quilters to like, let's get some quilts for these kids that just experienced the worst couple days of their life. And we can all read all the stories online. They are heartbreaking. I can say from some personal experience in the last 2 weeks, they are heartbreaking even more to hear in person. And so I think that the idea here is that a quilt is basically just like a hug you can wrap yourself up in. It tells you that someone cares, that someone spent hours and time and money and so much cuss words and other things into this thing for you. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm the only one who cusses.
No, I think it happens, I think when I think about the treasures that I have those treasures of quilts from my great grandmother, from my grandmother, that I can pass on to my kids, to my grandkids, and now my own quilts. And that's where I came into it. It is my therapy as well. When I lost my husband, your dad, that was my turnoff. That was my thing to do. That was my community. And I wasn't going to cry, and here it goes.
Yeah, we're going to cry on this thing. That's just buckle up, people.
And I do have a quilt, and it's not the most beautiful quilt ever, but it's the quilt. I call it my napping blanket. It's just got muslin on the back. It doesn't have a beautiful fabric print on the back like we put on quilts now. It just has plain old muslin. But it's my comforting quilt. It's my quilt in the winter that I lay on top as that extra layer to keep me warm at night. If there's a storm and I'm headed to the cellar, that quilt's going to be thrown down the stairs to be down there to meet me.
Now you have a bag to throw them in, so that's
true. But I didn't before, and it kind of got muddy in that last little storm. We'll talk about that at some point, I'm sure. But
the other thing I think about with quilts and why kind of collecting quilts for those who experience this current tragedy is when I think about my own experiences with grief and trauma, the people I work with, all those pieces. Some of the hardest moments are the nighttime moments when you're trying to fall asleep. When the world is quiet and you are stuck with your own brain. You can't pull your phone out because that's going to make you not fall asleep. You are just stuck with the thoughts. right after dad died, I turned to like I started using sleepy stories to force myself to like think about the story to like shift it off.
Well,
But
now
I
you know
love
why I sleep with the TV on.
yeah, I can't just too much light. It's too much for me. But I love the idea of kids having a blanket or a quilt with them when they're in those hard moments that just says somebody cared so much about you and what you've experienced that you're not alone in these moments. Because I also think trauma and grief lie to us in these ways that tell us that like you're alone. You're the only one who knows what this feels like, and that's just not factually true. And so this is like a tangible thing kids can hold on to of like, nope, this person knows and cares and is with me, and I'm not alone. I somebody else gets it. Um, so we're launching, I guess we sort of kind of already launched it, or like a
We
fifth.
kind of launched that the Sunday after it all started.
We're
We
pulling it together.
decided,
We're getting
yeah,
organized. We're continuous.
I put out a post and said that I was going to collect quilts, and the local quilt shop that I'm affiliated with in Amarillo, Quilt Winks, offered for that to be a drop off spot. So I kind of threw that out there. We were collecting quilts for those kids because I kept having that voice saying, just put it out there and see
Do
what
something.
happens.
Yeah.
And we talked on the phone as you drove back home, and we're watching the floods as you were traveling back from the
I
Panhandle
got
to
to
Austin.
navigate around some flooded
Yes,
zones because it was
yes.
flooding. I mean, the other piece is like the San Antonio piece flooding, and then like Leander, which is just North Austin, was also flooding. And so I was trying to drive in through that, which was a fun game.
And a place I love, Ruidoso, got hit again. They had a fire last year, then they had a flood, and it just keeps hitting them. So we decided to put it out there. I put it out on my personal Facebook page, and I also put it out on the Texas Shop Hop, and had immediate response. I've got a quilting group from upstate New York that is sending me a box of quilts that should be coming
Wow.
anytime. I had a lady send me 4 quilts from Indiana. I've had quilts from Illinois.
Ohio
And I had a
maybe.
lady that said,
Then.
would you just call me? Here's my number. So I did. And you never know what you're going to get. And so she answers the phone. I answered the phone and I said, this is Shelly Allen. And she goes, yes, are you the one that put out the original post? And I said, well, I am. And she said, well, you know how there's scams everywhere. She said, I just want to talk to the original person. She said, actually, my sister in law in Kentucky somehow got your post and sent it to me. And she said, so we are planning a trip to Yosemite in September. So I was wondering how long you were going to take quilts. I said, well, I haven't put a cutoff date on this yet. I want to see what comes in because really I would love to cover every single one of those girls that was at camp with a quilt, which would mean 1,000.
But well, yeah,
And
they
yeah,
had 750 at camp, and then the other part was like some of those other people that just like lost their homes in pieces. So the goal is
or
1,000.
lost their lives in other
Yeah.
communities. So
Yeah.
just to show some love. And so she said, well, we're planning a trip to Yosemite. And she said, so we looked at the map, remind you, she's in Ohio.
Okay, this
And
is
she
Ohio.
said, we decided we've never been to Amarillo and we would like to come to Amarillo and drop off those quilts in September if that's okay with you and you'll still take them. And I said I would love them. So she is planning on bringing some from Ohio. I have a classmate that's outside of the Dallas area and she was like, I want in, I want to help, I'm in. And so she is collecting quilts there. And then I had another lady in Dallas that said, how can I get these to you? And I said, well, actually, I work for University in Beaumont and I got to go to back to school. So in August, I'll be traveling through that way and I can meet you. And she said, all right, give me the date. I'm going to tell my guild. I'm going to tell my quilting group and we're going to get quilts for those girls. So it is really spread.
And I think that was what we've talked about doing a podcast for a while. And that kind of pushed us into the like, we need to get a formal collect the concept. I also have a lot of quilt shops here in Austin who are ready and working on some pieces. And
Well,
we've got
and I will say that
connections and people to
Hometown
get
Quilts in
quilts to
Amarillo
people.
has
Yeah.
offered to be a drop-off stop at the
Yeah.
quilt shop in Bourne. The name escapes me at this moment. Has offered to be a drop-off spot,
Great.
and then we will coordinate. We've got the ones in Austin. So we've got some options, and we know other people are collecting too, and we hope to get back on the shop hop and kind of bridge those together. So we can get a feel for how many we have and where they're going to make sure they get to the right people. But we're kind of chat GPT people right now. So I put my script in there, wanted to make sure it was clear before I put my post on social media. And then I was like, what would you call this? And so chat told me Wrap Texas in Love. So this is the Wrap Texas in Love project. So we have a Facebook page. We will have an Instagram page.
Have an Instagram page. I'll link it on the thing. We are working on a website that we can kind of hopefully have a page that's just kind of highlighting where all these quilts are coming from, because I think part of this is we're kind of blown away with how many people from all over are feeling the deepness and the connected pieces of this. And really
I will say we've been at this, 2 weeks?
Yeah, that's it.
I'm at over 100-ish.
That's insane.
Isn't that great? I mean, I did have a lady come in and bring me 15 quilt tops. And I'm like, oh gosh. And the owner at Quiltwink said, I will pay for the backs. I'm doing the batting. I'm doing the long arming. And we were looking at some of the bigger quilts, a couple of ladies and I that do a lot of quilting and a lot of charity quilts. And I was like, can we not go right down the middle, put other borders on and make 2 out of 1? And they were like, yes. So 4 of them, we made 8 instead of 4. And, as I was talking to them on Saturday and we were looking at a couple of them and kind of what to do, one of the ladies said, I'm just trying to live out my joy and make other people happy. And that's why I do these charity quilts. The other lady said, I totally agree with you. She does a lot of quilts for what we call quilts of honor instead of quilts of valor, so that it covers the veterans in the Texas Panhandle, and does the so long and does the long arming for that. And I said, I'm just living my dash. I'm trying to see what the rest of my life looks like from my beginning date through my dash to whenever that time comes when you don't get to talk to me on this podcast, Tiffany.
We have a little bit of some dark humor. It's welcome to the party. So it's really I think part of what this project really has become, and what got both of us, I mean, honestly, we just put it out there and then it's taken off. But this podcast and the goal of it was just about showing up for ourselves, for each other, for the mess. And sometimes for a quilt that's just barely holding it together, but it's still doing its job. We'll definitely get more into who we are as time goes on. And I don't know, I think we're pretty funny most of the time.
I think people have said we're funny. I bought a long arm last year, kind of on a semi whim. Got a good deal, let's just say that. And so then we go to classes. I didn't even know what I had. I hadn't gotten it out of the box. We go to the second day of class, and we thought
we go to the first day of class.
Well, we ended up in that class that was way over our heads.
We went into a class and it was all people who definitely owned long arms and had for at least more than 4 months. So they generally knew what they were doing. And we were like, hi, we've not even taken it out of the box yet.
And we were learning how to put things in shapes, and we're like, I don't even know how to start the thing.
How do I turn it on? What's step 1?
Does mine have this laser on this needle? Because this is cool. Yeah,
it sure does. It sure does. You're good. So yeah, by the time we get to day 2, we were running late because Austin traffic. And I guess there were about to be not 2 seats together. And the teacher was like, there's this mother-daughter duo coming and you guys want them to sit together. So save those 2 seats. And I was like, okay.
Didn't she say, because they're kind of funny?
She's like, they're kind of funny. You want them to sit together. And I was like, okay.
We're kind of serious today, but we really want you to join us in this venture. Listen to our stories. We've got several things running, not just this Wrap Texas in Love. We got a few other projects up our sleeves. We got some fun. We got some learning. But you can head over to Instagram and find at the seams between us. Let me get that right.
Yeah, I'll put it on the thing.
Or visit that Facebook page for details on how to send quilts or supplies, or if you want to help out with batting and backing, I'm good with that as well. We can give you some drop-off locations, or we'll find one close to you if we need to, and then we'll coordinate picking that up at some point. I mean, I got 10 and a half hours between me to get to Beaumont to the office, so to speak.
So we're looking at ideally twin size-ish quilts is kind of the goal, just because that's a good size for children and teenagers, and it's what they could take to camp with them.
Or a lap,
because those little tiny ones don't need that big. You
Or
can
if you've got if you've got one that's
if
a
you've
quilt
just got
top,
tops,
yeah.
great. If you just want to donate batting, if you just want to donate backing, if you just want to donate some Glide thread because we're gonna sit and long arm them all, that's great. We're just looking for like whatever level people want to help and participate and be a part of this.
Or if you want to gather and just get them to us, whatever you can do is appreciated.
Yeah.
We're not doing this for us. We're doing this for those precious people that were affected on July 4th and didn't see it coming. So just like grief waves hit you, that flood hit them, and it's going to continue to hit them over and over and over again.
Yeah.
We just want to love on them.
Yeah. If you don't know how to quilt, we can help you figure out how you can learn how to do it. You can figure out what you can do to be a part of it. This is not just like anybody who wants to participate can get in. We really believe in the like, there's a place for everybody. There's room for us all. Everyone can be a part of.
And everybody has to start somewhere. You have to start at the beginning somewhere.
That's true. Well, this is like a really fun way, I think, to I think about all of my childhood, and probably part of why I became a therapist eventually was that Mr. Rogers quote of look for the helpers. When you see bad things happening or scary things happening, you look for the helpers. And I just wanted to be the helper. So I found a way to be the helper. And so this is a way for people, no matter where you are, to be a helper. Whatever that looks like for what you can do. We're really excited about this podcast situation and what we can do. We'll have some guests. We'll have some I don't know, humor stories. I hear we've got a dating situation story that I feel like I should tease.
Not that I'd call it a dating situation story, but it is a funny story.
We're coming back to it. We're definitely coming back to this. So yeah, we're really grateful that you guys have sat here with us for this long. This is going to be a space where we're just going to talk about life, the mess, the grief, the chaos, and the joy. Thread, memory, fabric, family, whatever.
Baseball. I love some baseball.
Someone will probably talk about baseball. I will probably.
And maybe a rant or two about those people that leave the rotary blade open.
I do not love that. That's true. That's true.
Oh, I know.
There is so much stitching for us to do, and there's so much to find between the seams.
Life's not perfect. It's just pieced.
We're pieced together from the scraps that made us, and we hope you join us